So, with that being said, let's talk about what happened this weekend in NASCAR. Um, Darlington, one of my favorite tracks on the circuit. It was throwback weekend this weekend. Throwback game was on point as it usually is. But I would say that this throwbacks this year were better than we've seen in the last couple of years. So much fun with throwbacks and the uniqueness of the paint schemes. Like with Larson doing a Tony Stewart paints throwback. Like, who would have thought of that? Because I would have thought that they would have went with a Terry Labonte paint scheme, in my opinion.
I think everybody's been waiting for the Terry Labonte paint scheme to get thrown back in it, and it hasn't been. So I think
No,
the day it is going to be a remarkable day, and it's going to be some remarkable excitement out of us. So I hope it happens like next year. If it happens, I hope it happens like while we're mid filming, so everybody can get the genuine reaction of one of the cars that I've been waiting for a long time to see back out on that track. So I imagine everybody else is feeling the same way. I know you two guys feel the same way. So it's about time we bring that car back on the track. And as much as I'm happy to see a smoke paint scheme out there, it's not really one that I like. I remember it, yes, but it's not one that I go, oh, that car. Like we definitely could have went with the Terry Labonte throwback scheme, and it would have definitely popped a lot more.
Now, which scheme are you thinking about, though, when you think about Terry Labonte? The Frosted Flakes or the Corn Flakes?
See, the Frosted Flakes to me is the one that I kind of grew up with. That was the one that I remember, but I know that the Corn Flakes one is a bit more iconic. So if I had to pick one, the Corn Flakes one's going to be the one that I pick simply because it's more iconic. But if the Kellogg's, the Frosted Flakes one comes out, I'm not going to be mad about that one either because that's the one that I mainly remember growing up. So either or is fine with me as long as we just get one of them out on the track. That's all that matters. But neither of them have seen the track, and that's ridiculous in my opinion.
all right. So going with the cornflakes paint scheme, would you go with the classic um, red and yellow paint scheme, or would you go with the all silver Iron Man car?
Red and yellow.
I would go with the iconic red
Exactly.
and yellow.
Because they both have really cool stories behind them, but you can't beat the red and yellow, the red and yellow classic. But the Iron Man car is when Labonte broke his hand in a qualifying crash of practice his championship year. Shouldn't have won that championship. Not biased, but he won the championship with a broken hand.
Chase
like
Briscoe
Kurt
should have done that with his broken hand. He should have done a throwback to that car.
Yeah, it's like Kurt Angle winning his gold medal with a broken freaking neck.
You know why Terry did that, don't you? Because he's from Texas. That's how Texas people do it.
Exactly. Texas tough. So I want to talk about the truck and Xfinity race just a little bit. Our Truck Series winner from Friday night, Christian Eckes, his second win of the season after a very chaotic ending to the Truck Series race, but a fun race. So overall, very fun race and, like I said, chaotic. So currently, and these points are including the drivers who have wins for the Truck Series. So Zane Smith is P1, Eckes is P2, Corey Heim P3, Enfinger is P4, Hocevar is P5. Like I said, those are all drivers with a win. And so Majeski is P6 currently above and has 329 points. So he currently has over a 100-point lead above the cut line. Ben Rhodes is a P7, 301 points, has over about an 80-point lead over the cut line. Crafton is P8, Tanner Gray is P9, and Nick Sanchez is P10 with a 6-point lead over Stuart Friesen on the cut line. And so our Xfinity race had a had an interesting finish. And so when I jumped on social media to check who won the race, I was not expecting Larson to win that race, yet let alone be in that chaotic finish. Um, I texted my friend, who is not a Larson fan, but he is a John Hunter Nemechek fan. I said, "That was an interesting finish." He goes, "Yep." So very, very interesting finish between Kyle Larson and John Hunter Nemechek for the Xfinity brand win. Hard
English is
racing.
hard.
Do what?
English is hard.
I have a communications degree. I know what I'm talking about.
You're educated in this.
Yes. Hard racing or just a chaotic finish for the Xfinity race. What would you guys think about that?
Imagine if it was Ross Chastain won the race like that.
Yeah, we were talking about that the other night. I went on to a little tirade about that. That's not important, but if you
You're
want
not
my
gonna like my
opinion,
thoughts, Jacob. So I don't know if I should
that's
speak mine. You should go. Go ahead.
I'll go first. If you want, obviously I'm biased, but that was hard racing. And that's just a product of Darlington, I'd have to say. Because if you have one car bounce off the wall so hard, you got to expect it to come off the wall and into the other car. And that's exactly what happened between Larson and Nemechek coming off of turn 4, I think it was. And that's why Nemechek got sent down into the inside wall. And he got scarily close getting clobbered coming back to the line because he never held the brake. Because he wanted to cross the finish line. He still finished like P5 or something like that, sliding backwards, and he almost got clobbered by Cole Custer coming to the line. But I don't think it's any different than the Xfinity race last season at Darlington between Creed, Larson, and Gregson. Just all very fierce competitors going for the win. It's just a product of Darlington, and obviously you don't want to see the crash, but that's just a product of Darlington and hard racing. So I want to hear your thoughts, Mason, because you've got me intrigued.
I guess more so my frustration kind of comes from yesterday, so it'll be more in the segment with Ross Chastain. But when you look at the replay of what happened, I mean, yeah, I know you're right. It's a lot of hard racing there with him and John Hunter Nemechek, and more so specifically, they just didn't give each other a lot of room, and it's kind of goes back to what we've talked about lately, where it's so difficult to get these close finishes. It's so difficult to get these side-by-side finishes. And once again, we had an opportunity for one, and they're just neither guy kind of gives the room. I mean, Larson definitely gave a lot more room than Nemechek ever did, but certainly Nemechek could have, held up a little bit on the inside, and he would have avoided, he would be coming home with the checkered flag had he not have been so close to him. So, it's a mixed bag right there. I think, it's tough when it's a guy that's been involved in some stuff lately. And but no, I think it's like you said, it's a hard racing incident. Things are going to happen that way sometimes, and unfortunately, John Hunter Nemechek was the loser in that scenario. But more so, I'd say my frustration probably stems from the Ross Chastain incident, which we'll get into later. So I won't get into my rant just quite yet. I'll let things simmer a little bit, but no, you're right. It's definitely a hard racing incident. It's not what you want to see at all, but definitely an exciting finish for sure.
Personally, I don't have a problem with it. It's just hard racing, and if it happens, it happens.
Yeah.
I mean, that's my thoughts of it. Although I am thinking about what if Bubba Wallace was the one that won that race, or what if Ross Chastain was the one that won that race? We might be having a different conversation, and internet might be having a different conversation.
No, you're absolutely right. Just think about if it was, Kyle Busch winning that race, or I don't know, Stenhouse winning that race. The tone of this conversation would be completely different. And whether our opinions on it being hard racing or not be different, I think they would still stay the same for me. But I can't speak for the internet. The internet.
Oh, especially if it was, say, somebody like Bubba Wallace. NASCAR Facebook would just go crazy.
Yeah, they would have a meltdown. So wrapping that up, our current Xfinity Series standings, Austin Hill leads the way with 3 wins. Then John Hunter Nemechek with 2 wins. Chandler Smith, P3 with 1 win. Sammy Smith, 1 win. You kind of forget that Sammy Smith won a race, honestly, just with how young he is. And that's no disrespect to him, but you just kind of forget that he's already won a race. Let alone at Phoenix in a pretty tough track for, what is he, 17, 18 years old?
He's 18.
Yeah, something like that. He's a youngin'.
He's a youngin'. Jeb Burton, 1 win on the season. Then comes Cole Custer, P6. Allgaier, P7. Josh Berry, P8. Sheldon Creed, P9. Riley Herbst, P10. Sam Mayer, P11. And Daniel Hemrick is P12. And so that means that Parker Kligerman is the first driver out of the current Xfinity Series playoffs at 274. So he is 33 points below the cut line behind Daniel Hemrick. So still a long ways to go for the Xfinity Series. If you're not watching the Xfinity Series, what are you doing? They are always putting on a good show, no matter where they are. Shame that they are not at North Wilkesboro this weekend, but I completely understand their reasoning. It's a bigger field, a couple cars bigger than the Truck Series, but we will get into that in a little bit. So let's talk about the Cup Series. Pretty calm race for the first 2 stages, and then stage 3 just decided to implode on itself, because that was crazy.
Yeah, that was wild. And between 2 pileups and then Chastain, Ross being Ross.
Oh, Ross. Yeah, so we saw 2 big ones in the race. And I feel like that's actually a characteristic of Darlington. You see these many big ones, whether they be on the front stretch, back stretch, or whatever. They're always on the restarts, and you've been seeing it more and more recently in recent years. And it's just a product of Darlington. And the first one was of really no one's fault aside from Eric Jones' tire.
That one was just stupid. That one shouldn't have happened.
No, it definitely shouldn't have. That was just unfortunate circumstances, in my opinion. It took a couple pretty decent cars out. Eccentric. I think Austin Dillon was in that first one. So, and the second one was just overtime. That was just a typical overtime restart, or a late race restart at least. And the field just came together, and everybody was piled in it. And yeah, that was crazy for a little while. And then as if we couldn't think it would get more chaotic, Ross Chastain made his name once again. Late race restart, what are you going to do in that situation? You know what I mean? It was just chaos. Honestly, I'm just going to let Mason talk because I want to hear your opinions about this.
Sure, it's been simmering for a minute here. So, let's talk about this, okay? So, I want to discuss, everybody's up Ross Chastain's butt. And as much as, yes, he did something wrong, does everybody fail to mention the fact that because it was Kyle Larson, right? that before that, Larson sent Chastain into the wall. And then I was laughing so hard. Cliff Daniels is like, really, Chevrolet? Really? Another one? Really? That's 3 times he's wrecked us this season. And I go, well, hey, you wrecked him the turn before. I don't understand the whole, like, it feels like it's a consistent thing with Kyle Larson where, it's the same thing with Chastain. Kyle Larson and Chastain, I do not see them as very different at all, okay? I see them as, like, Chastain's definitely a lot more aggressive, but Larson's wrecked the same amount of cars in the last 2 years as Chastain has, but nobody talks about it because Larson's the fan favorite and Chastain is not because Chastain's just an over-aggressive driver. All I'm saying is the two of them were both in the wrong. They both deserve to have their asses out of the race, and that's exactly what happened. So I was happy with the result because neither of them deserved to be on that track. Because in all honesty, the fact that Larson ran him up the track, I understood it a little bit because of prior weeks, but throughout this entire race, Chastain had raced Larson very clean. He raced him very, very tight, but he raced him clean. Up until that point, Larson sent him up into the wall, and then things were different after that. So Chastain tried to give it back. It turns out that they both, were involved in the. Yeah, they both. There was no give or take from either of them. So to sit there and say that it's all Chastain's fault and yada yada yada, you got to look back a little bit further. There's a little bit more on the tape there. So I think Cliff Daniels screaming and yelling was a bit over the top. And honestly, it's like Chastain has shown if you're gonna mess with him, he's gonna mess with you right back. So just race him hard, and that's it. He was racing you for the lead. It was really good, really tight, clean racing between the two of them. When they kept it clean, it was really entertaining because the two of them were inches from each other and they were inches from the wall. It was extremely entertaining. And then Larson said, oh, well, and kind of just sent him into the wall. And that was when things took a turn, like I said. So ultimately, right, my whole thing has just been, I said it a few weeks ago when Larson, I can't remember exactly who he doored, but he doored somebody into the wall. I've said it before. He races just as aggressive as Chastain does. And he just has, there are moments where Larson pulls back a lot more than Chastain. Chastain's more all out, and Larson will pull back. But when Larson's aggressive, he's aggressive. And sometimes things like that happen. So yesterday was a racing deal. They each got each other once. I think it should be done after that. Larson sent him into the wall. Chastain sent him into the wall. It's done. It's over with. I don't know why we need to, it's nobody's fault. It's hard racing because the two of them wanted to be, to each other, and then they both found themselves out of the race, and neither of them had the trophy. So that's what happens. You live and you learn. Maybe the two of them learned a lesson that they shouldn't throw haymakers at each other at 190 miles an hour, but you never know. Guys are going to keep doing it, and we'll see what happens. I'm going to take a breath here. That was a long rant. I'm sorry. I'm so over this constant, I've said it. It's kind of the same deal with Chase Elliott, where if they have the fans to back them up, there's never going to be any blame thrown, and there's just a few people to throw the blame. And then when Chastain does something, it's like the whole world is crumbling down. Okay, relax, everybody. It's okay. Believe it or not, there are more eyes on the sport because of him. I'll take it all day long.
Can I at least say something as a Larson fan?
Go ahead. I need to breathe. You're good.
At least I've been a fan of him since he was a rookie. So I'm not a fan of I'm not a fan of him just because he wins a lot. I've been a fan of him since he was a rookie. So
no, that's fair. I'm not. I never would think of that.
That's all I'm gonna say. Oh no, I know. But that's all I wanted to say.
Fan before he is cool.
Yes, correct. I think the thing that bothers me about it is that part of me wants to say that it was, and obviously I'm biased. Part of me wants to say part of this had to do with Darlington. And it was just, like I said, with the Xfinity race, two drivers going for it at the same time, and whether it be the what was the second to last restart with Larson and Chastain, or the whenever it was that they both got tight with Chastain ending up in the wall himself, or whenever it was, or whether that was just a little bit of retaliation on Larson's Larson's deal, which I wouldn't doubt. I wouldn't doubt at all. And I 100% understand Cliff Daniels' frustration because, it's been 3 out of the last 4 races that Ross has been a part of incidents with the 5 car, Talladega, Dover, and now Darlington. So I understand his frustration. Do I think it was a little over top? A little bit. But what I think was funny was Rick Hendrick's comments about Chastain.
Saw that this morning.
I have never heard Mr. Hendrick like that before, and I love it.
Yeah, he was definitely a little bit fired up, that's for sure.
He never said that with Dale Sr. either. Never made an issue with Dale Sr. And never was mad about him.
That's because Rick Hendrick respected Dale Sr.
Yeah.
And Ross Chastain hasn't earned most of Rick Hendrick's respect yet.
Has Jeff Gordon said anything about it? Because Jeff Gordon's pretty much his right-hand man at this point.
I don't think Jeff said anything because he was at the media center at the same time that Mr. Hendrick was. So I am not 100% certain.
I'm surprised about that.
I just wish everybody in the garage area would stop acting like they're angels and stuff. Like when Kyle's like, when Kyle calls him names in the garage area, like Kyle didn't, get called names in the garage area at that age. Like everybody acts like there's some angel and forgets that, like, that's all I'm saying. Everybody's a little bit hypocritical when it comes down to some of these things because they're like, oh, Ross, you can't do that. But, oh, look you did that yourself 8 years ago. So you made the same mistake.
My thoughts were exactly what Mason was thinking when I was watching all of that. Like, especially when Larson at first put him into the wall and was racing him that hard. And then Ross did the same thing, and they just ended up crashing out because of that. I was thinking the same thing as Mason. I don't know.
This whole thing feels very similar to the maturity of Brad Keselowski throughout like 2013, 2014, where everybody hated him and then eventually it came around, but also at the same time, Ross does not have a championship under his belt to be doing this sort of thing. Like there's a lot less there, hasn't won in 36 races now. So that's where too, I think that's where you see him being a little bit more aggressive as well. Pressure's on. He races this way, and yet he hasn't had the wins to kind of back it up. So the pressure is on for him. Everybody wants to say, oh, the pressure's not on, but the pressure is on for him. He needs to win a race. It's been 36 races, actually, I think it's been more than that since
since Talladega.
It's been like 39 races since he's won a race. So, there's a reason he's driving aggressive. Hasn't won in 39 races. You've seen what some guys who haven't won in a while would be willing to do to get that win. So he's no different. As long as everybody stops acting like a hypocrite and stops acting like an angel about the whole situation, I'll feel a little bit differently about it. But for now, I will say it was quite funny that Larson kind of drove with Chastain on his front bumper down the back straightaway for a little while.
That was pretty funny because you could hear him. I don't know whether he was just trying to get off of him or what, but you could hear him accelerate on the IndyCar camera.
Well, and it's very reminiscent of I don't know if there was any penalties thrown out for it, but when Kevin Harvick did that to Kyle Busch back in the day in a Busch Series race, and Kyle Busch called him out for it in the interview, where Kyle was a little bit blunt in his interview, where his exact words were Kevin tried to commit murder on him. So
nice.
That sort of thing. I don't know if there was any penalties handed out, but you definitely have to be careful about that sort of thing. But for Larson, he's frustrated. He's showing his displeasure. Can't say I technically blame him, but like I said, the two of them did not deserve to be in that race if they're going to race each other like that. and so be it.
Now, I will say this. I think both of them might, especially Ross, might need to just take it down a little bit. Just a wee bit. And so I think NASCAR might ought to ban both of them and send them to their room for a race and think about what they've done. That and then that'll settle it.
Well, the problem with that is that they're not going to do it.
You know, back in the old days, as I say, like a geezer, they would that would work. Like whoever was running NASCAR at the time, they'd say, all right, both of y'all need to sit down and talk this out and end this feud. They would end it. It'd be finished there. That would be it. And it's because there was a bit more respect between everybody. And something has to be done with that. And I think NASCAR might at least need to exercise the idea of saying, y'all just need to stop and start giving out penalties.
I'm gonna start calling Ross Chastain the Joker. I think I'm gonna start calling him the Joker because he just makes everybody that comes around him and confronts him look like a jackass every time.
I know. I absolutely love that. He's like my spirit animal.
Because it's like you end up messing with him, both of you are gonna be wrecked. It's not gonna be one of you. It's gonna be both of you. Or he did get the punch in on Gregson. Like. I wouldn't want to mess with Chastain, man, because he's got somebody looking over him. Okay, somebody is helping keep him from being untouched as far as a punch. As far as if you're gonna wreck me, you're coming with me. It's quite hilarious to watch as this whole thing has gone down. It's definitely entertaining, and the sport is meant for entertainment. So. What can I say?
And two, I want to say this about Ross. As much as I like him, I do think that maybe he needs to dial it down a little bit until he gets a little bit more respect or a little bit more charisma. And then he could pull the Dale Sr. thing, talk his way out of it.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing is that I don't know if Chastain knows how to do that.
Yeah, you got a point there. You're probably right about that.
Because Ross, ever since he really came onto the scene for Ganassi's Xfinity team in 2018, he's been a very, very, very aggressive driver and does not know how to obviously pull his punches. So, I think.
Man, go ahead. Finish up. Sorry.
So no, you're fine. I was going to say if this is turning into a rivalry, NASCAR is definitely going to have to at least sit both Larson and Chastain down and say, look, this is what's going on. We can't have this anymore. Yeah, because this is not a good look for the sport. It's entertaining, but it's not a good look for the sport.
No, that I agree. It's definitely it is entertaining, but it's not what the sport wants to be known for. Is for these constant debacles, and Ross kind of made that known. He went on the Pat McAfee show this week, and he kind of made that known that the sport's not all about the fights, and it's not all about that sort of thing. So it's one thing to have the fights, but it's another to have them on this sort of consistent basis that we've had, and so that's where I think a lot of people have taken the issue with it. Is a lot of that respect has been lost. But with Ross, right, he's kind of had to strap and claw his way up to the top. And as you said, it's really hard to pull back on that. And I feel like it's a perfect example of how difficult this sport is and how difficult it is to be successful in this sport these days. Because if you look at all those guys that have had kind of that background where they've had to scrap and claw their way up and they haven't had it as easy, it feels like a lot of those guys are some of the guys that don't know how to pull it back as well. when it comes down to it and when they really need to kind of pull things back, because that's all they've done is scrap and claw to get to the top because they've had to, because maybe they didn't have the sponsorships dollars or something like that, or they didn't have the name behind them or something like that. So that sort of thing changes it as well, because some of those other guys haven't had to work as hard, not discrediting their hard work, but some of those guys haven't had to work as hard to get to that position, to get to a top Cup Series ride or something like that, as compared to some other guys. So there's going to be some scrapping and clawing, and those guys that have had to work to get there can't pull back as much as those guys that have kind of gotten there and have been there from the start.
Yeah, I think there is something about that too. I believe that drivers do have a chip on their shoulder. Some of them that did have to fight along the way. And again, that kind of too reminds me of Dale Sr., because both of them come from working class backgrounds. Yeah, Dale's daddy raced, but still, they both come from working class backgrounds and had to fight to get where they are. And it is hard for them to try to rein it in a little bit. I will say Dale Sr., I think, was a little bit more, what's the right word? He was maybe more in control, I guess. And I think he was easier to get along with too. But I think Ross needs to develop a little bit more charisma. And the field in general just needs a lot more respect for each other. And I don't think it's necessarily a Ross problem. I think it's a NASCAR problem.
It 100% is.
Alluding to.
Yeah, and Kyle Busch even said, like, I don't know, 2 months ago, that there's not as much respect amongst the garage as there was in 2004, 2005 when he first came in. So it's one of those deals where NASCAR has to start addressing these issues. It's going to take time for these things to fix themselves, whether it be the drivers fix it themselves or NASCAR fix it themselves.
And then let's kind of take a step backwards too. We have IndyCar, where the drivers respect themselves very well in IndyCar, and I'm not entirely sure how, why, what's different about the two things that make them respect each other more, but they just do. And in IndyCar, if somebody gets wrecked or gets turned or something, they don't go belly aching, moaning, and complaining on the radio. And so you rarely see any fights in IndyCar. And so I don't know, maybe NASCAR, it wouldn't hurt for them to maybe get a little bit more strict for a temporary time. Maybe that would bring in some of the respect back, but at the same time, that could make it worse too.
Now, I have a hypothetical question for the two of you. Now, because this car, it's very on the edge, right? It's very on the edge. There's that thin line between, out of control and in control is a lot thinner than what it used to be. If we were in the old cars, do you think we would see as many incidents with Ross Chastain or with those guys who have to scrap? And I think about like Chase Briscoe a lot, right? He's made a lot of those weird mistakes, a lot of those aggressive mistakes, because he's one of those guys that's had to scrap and claw his way to the top too. Would they perform any different if they had a car that had more of that edge where you could tell? Because maybe that's part of it too, and that's what makes it so different, and that's why we're seeing way more incidents, is because these cars are so much further on the edge, and a lot of these drivers like driving it right on that edge. And when that thin line's a little bit thinner, a lot more mistakes happen. And I feel like maybe that's what we've seen over the course of the last 2 years with this next gen car.
Now, when you say old car, what gen are you talking about?
I mean, I feel like the Gen 5 was a lot more, like Gen 5, Gen 6 era was a lot more glued to the track than the Gen 4 era was. So probably that era for sure.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was just thinking, yeah, that could be a lot of it too. And maybe guys will, and maybe you could even say that the cars too are, when they get hit, they're tough. And maybe that could have something to do with it. They're too armored, maybe. I don't know. That sounds dumb, but maybe that could have something to do with it.
I'm not sure. I feel like it can go either way because, like you said, drivers like to drive on the edge with this new car. And with the old car, obviously we didn't see as many incidents, but I kind of feel like that wouldn't matter nowadays if we were still in the Gen 6 era because I kind of feel like with the X and like I said, going back to what I said about Ross with the Xfinity series, he was still as aggressive as he is now today with these current next gen cars.
I have noticed something that the respect has kind of started to go downhill, or lack thereof. Started with Car Tomorrow because he started having more incidents. Like, think about when Brad Keselowski was in like his second year or something, and Carl Edwards wrecked him in Atlanta that one year. I think that was 2009. And that was really one of the first times in modern, I guess, modern sport or modern NASCAR within the last 15 years that I noticed that lack of respect there. And maybe it was, what gen was the Car Tomorrow? Was that Gen 5?
Correct.
Yep.
So maybe there was something like with Gen 4 and even Gen 3, the cars were, people respected each other just because the cars were that way. And everybody knew that you didn't want to wreck somebody and it could get bad or whatever.
Do you think that that creates kind of like a new wave sort of thing where like in 10 years or so, that's where the sport more aligns with again, where it's like you don't want to touch that guy because the car is on that edge of out of control. Like, why would I want to touch him and wreck him? Do you
Yep.
think that we go back towards that and it kind of cycles every 40 to 30 years or so like that?
It could, but it's one of those deals where time will tell. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
It's just I really don't know right now. We're gonna have to see in a couple of years as to how everything plays out. Even this year, we're gonna see how the respect level in the garage at the end of this year when Phoenix comes around, where it is, and not only in the Cup Series but in the Xfinity Series as well. So it'll be interesting to see how all that plays out. But not to go ahead.
I want to add another thing to that. It's could be a generational thing too, because we're forgetting the human element part of it.
I was thinking the exact same thing because drivers are getting younger and younger. And I hate to throw Ty Gibbs out there, but look at the amount of incidents he's had in the last year alone.
How old is he? 19, 20?
20.
He's 20.
Yeah, maybe NASCAR might have to have a thing where you have to be 21 to drive in the Cup Series or something.
They might have to start looking into that nowadays, but
because if guys are getting that, well, if it is a generation and an age thing, then that means you're getting a whole bunch of hormonal teenagers on the road racing each other 200 miles an hour, upset about something. And you know how hormonal teenagers get.
Oh man. Yeah, no, that could definitely play a role into the respect in the garage.
Maybe,
just,
like you say, an age limit, something that they might have to start considering if the respect level doesn't raise.
Who knows? Like I said, we'll see in a couple of years as to how everything plays out.
Because no matter what, that's got to be fixed. Because people might start getting hurt if that isn't fixed soon.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. So let's talk about our winner this past Sunday, and I hate to shift subjects so quickly, but William Byron is our winner from Sunday. Yay! He is our winner at Darlington. All 7 of his wins have come in at different racetracks and in different paint schemes. The best paint scheme right here.
He only has that there because Chris upset him before the show.
I was a little
Chris said
salty.
he doesn't necessarily like the right paint scheme, so Jacob had to go get it off his desk.
Hey, you didn't have to say that.
Hey, I'd be the same way if somebody said that about like Tony Stewart Burger King. I'd flip my. I don't ever say it.
Your burger.
Exactly.
You are 100% right. But fun fact, that is the 100th win for the 24 car for Hendrick Motorsports. 93 of them coming with Jeff Gordon, my man, and 7 of them coming with Willie B. So really awesome to see that.
Did Chase Elliott not win in the 24?
No, dice.
He should have, but he did not.
That's surprising.
That was the big thing about the beginning of his career. He didn't win for those few years, and then they put him in the 9, and then he won at Watkins Glen, and then he's never stopped winning since.
Mm-hmm. Except for this year.
He needed the spirit of his daddy.
He got a P3 finish, which is very good. Very good. And Harvick P2. So very good to see those guys at the front of the field once again.
What about Bubba, P5?
P5 for Bubba.
And to make a note on Harvick too, and it was said on the broadcast, but credit to him, knew that he did not have the car to beat William Byron in that situation and did not create a disaster at the end there.
Yep.
Credit to Kevin Harvick. He got a second place finish out of it. That is what a veteran driver does. They understand the situation. So it's a credit to Kevin Harvick. He showed exactly why he's a champion and why he's one of the veteran drivers that these younger guys should be looking up to in this sport. So hands down, great job by Kevin Harvick. He's known as the closer and couldn't quite close it out, unfortunately, but he did the right thing, and congratulations to them on a second place finish.
That's how you grow respect in the garage area.
Exactly.
So, guys, I think we got a little thing going on at North Wilkesboro this weekend, don't we?
What?
The Cars Tour.
Like a race going on or something?
Yeah, the Cars Tour is going to be there, right? No. Yeah. In all seriousness, guys, we have the Cars Tour this week at North Wilkesboro, but most importantly, the NASCAR Cup Series All-Star Race is at North Wilkesboro for the first time in how long? At least
96.
Since 1996.
And we got a truck race.
And we got a truck race. So we got a twofer going on this weekend. So going to be a great show for not only NASCAR, but the Cars Tour as well, because Rodney Sandstorm is making his Cars Tour debut. If you don't know who Rodney Sandstorm is, it's Jordan Taylor.
And he's driving a rainbow car.
He is driving the Jeff Gordon-inspired paint scheme, which I love. I'm all for it, obviously. But, yeah, Cars Tour. I actually don't know when that is.
There can be a lot of good drivers in that Cars Tour race, too.
Yeah, so Chase is going to be in.
We have Chase Elliott.
Kevin Harvick. Ross Chastain.
Jr.?
I don't know about Dale Jr. I want to say yes.
I think he is. I'm not sure, though.
Is he in the Bass Pro car?
I thought he was in the Sundrop car.
No, that was the Sundrop car was just for the recent weeks leading up, I thought. But I could be wrong.
And Suarez will be in the race for the Cars Tour.
Will Newman be there too?
I don't think so.
Okay, guys, I've got here's a couple of the names that'll be in there. I've got some more. Kevin Harvick, obviously, we talked about. Chase Briscoe, it looks like, is on the list. I'm not seeing Ryan Newman anywhere, but I am seeing a couple of the Quapples. Caden Quapple, Carson Quapple. Tate Fogelman will be in there. You guys we haven't heard about in a little while, so that's going to be really exciting. Carson Hocevar is going to be in there. Corey Heim. Yeah, there's going to be a lot of big names this weekend. So if you're going down to North Wilkesboro, you're going to enjoy some of the best racing probably this year from a few really good series, and specifically from that Cars Late Model stock tour.
I really wish I was there in North Wilkesboro, because that was one thing I was seeing for quite a while about the Cars Tour. And I imagine the tickets will be fairly affordable too.
Did we mention Brad Keselowski, Garrett Smithley? Who's the other one? Daniel Suarez is there as well. Yep. There was one more that I just saw that I no longer can remember. The Rodney Sandstorm keeps sticking right out for me. It just sticks right out. Harrison Burton, that's who it was. Harrison Burton will be there as well, so keep an eye on him.
Speaking of Harrison Burton, he got a great finish yesterday.
I'm so proud I picked him this weekend, and he made me a proud person.
That's for sure. Proud Papa.
I was gonna say Papa, but I figured not.
So yeah, guys, huge weekend for auto racing ahead of us at North Wilkesboro. If this is a success, I think we get a cup race at North Wilkesboro next year.
We better.
My biggest concern, my only concern about it is, will Wilkes County be able to handle it? Because I don't know if y'all have ever been to Wilkes County.
I have.
Jacob, you know it's small, and there's not a whole lot of infrastructure there. It's not like you're, say, going to Fort Worth, Dallas area.
They were able to handle the Cars Tour last year when Dale Jr. made an appearance there, and they were sold out. So I don't see why they wouldn't be able to handle the Cup Series again.
Well, the only thing is there's still the All-Star race is the All-Star race.
That's true.
And everybody and their grandmother and their grandmother's dog is going to want to go there.
Mm-hmm.
It's that time of year.
I've been wanting to go there, and we all saw some of the pictures there at the open house. Man, I wish I was in town for that. I really do. It looks great.
Guys, we don't have to pick this weekend, but if we want to, let's just go ahead and do it. Do you guys need an entry list for the All-Star race for our picks?
Brad Keselowski's my pick.
Oh. Brad K, huh?
I'll put him in the dark horse section. Let's not be too rash here. I'm going to put him in the dark horse section, especially because he's going to have to race his way in, I'm pretty sure, unless he's got a
he's locked in because he's a past champion.
Okay, so he's already locked in, so that makes me feel better about my dark horse. But if I had to pick one driver this weekend at North Wilkesboro, man, that's difficult. I feel like maybe we could see some – you know what? Here's my two drivers, okay? I'm going to go Brad Keselowski, and I'm going to go Bubba Wallace. All right, now Bubba Wallace, I'm saying Bubba Wallace because I feel like Toyota has been solid in some of their short tracks, especially, we look at like Richmond and stuff like that. They weren't too bad. So we could see them do well. But specifically, Bubba's been just on a roll lately. So I expect that to continue and possibly into a non-points paying race for sure. And then Brad Keselowski, same deal. Been on a roll, chipping away. Feels like they could get that that all-star win, and then people are going to be talking in a couple weeks about can Keselowski win a points-paying race. It sounds like a storyline that'll happen after this upcoming weekend.
My main pick is going to be Kyle Larson, because Kyle Larson, he's raced there at Wilkesboro, right? And he's won there, hasn't he?
I think in the K&N series.
So he knows what he's doing there, and he's hasn't been bad at short tracks, if I remember correctly.
No, that's where both of his wins have come this year.
Exactly. So I'd say I'm putting Kyle Larson in there, and for the dark horse, I'll be honest with you, I need an entry list for that.
So our full entry list and these are the drivers that are locked in for the All-Star race: Ross Chastain, Austin Cindric, Austin Dillon, Kevin Harvick, Kyle Larson, Brad Keselowski, Kyle Busch, Chase Elliott, Denny Hamlin, Ryan Blaney, Chase Briscoe, Chris Buescher, Martin Truex Jr., Christopher Bell, Joey Logano, Bubba Wallace, William Byron, Eric Jones, Tyler Reddick, Ricky Stenhouse Jr., and Daniel Suarez.
Should have just said who wasn't in it. Jeez.
I'm going with, for my dark horse, I'm going with the 3 of Austin Dillon. See the 3 back in there in victory lane at
there you go,
Wilkesboro.
All right, so my main pick is going to be Denny Hamlin. My second pick, my dark horse, is going to be Daniel Suarez. So
don't be surprised with Willie B either. The last time somebody won at Wilkesboro, it was a number 24.
Correct.
Yeah, I was thinking about him and Kyle Busch too. Those were 2 I had in the back of my mind.
Correct. So, guys, if we have anything else to add on to this, anything else to add on?
Just can't wait for the Wilkesboro race upcoming.
There you go.
I think we're going to see some haymakers this weekend. It's going to be a lot of fun.
It's going to be crazy.
You think Ross will Chastain somebody?
I don't know. I really don't
know.
But I think we're going to see something very special this weekend. I just have a feeling, that's for sure. Something we're going to remember for a long time.
All right.
I'm genuinely excited for Wilkesboro.
It's going to be a great race.
Amen, guys. Well, guys, if we have nothing else to say, this has been a fun episode. For those of you who are watching on YouTube, thank you. And for those of you who are listening on Spotify, thank you as well. My name is Jacob Barker, joined by Chris Shoemaker and Mason Wood once again. Guys, where can we find you on BSP and on social media?
Go ahead, Mason.
Mace Hollywood on Twitter, MASE Hollywood. I recently changed my Twitter @ I said it last week, so we're saying it again this week just so we can kind of hammer it home. Mace Hollywood is the new Twitter @, so follow me on there. You can follow the link in my bio. That's going to take you straight to BSP so you guys can check out all of my articles. Make sure you guys are checking out some of our football articles as well. We're also going to be working on some different coverage for the next few months. We're going to be working on some football coverage, obviously the NFL, but also the CFL. We're working on getting some coverage going for that. So be sure to look out for that. Lots to be excited about. My Instagram is Mason Hollywood 6. If you guys want to follow me there, it's a little bit more personal, but feel free. And hope everybody enjoys the racing this weekend and stop acting like everybody on the track is an angel. Thank you.
My @ on Twitter is CJ Outside Line, and also keep an eye on my Back Sports page thing, Christopher Shoemaker, and the hockey guys. We're all gearing up for the playoffs, writing stuff for the playoffs, and Trevor, with the upcoming round, he's going to have our picks out soon, so I'd keep an eye out for that.
Well, there you go.
Go Stars, by the way.
So you can find me on Twitter at JWBarker24, as well as Instagram. You can find me on Back Sports page with the motorsports section. Going to have a Darlington article coming up in just a couple days. So guys, once again, thank you for joining the episode once again. And for those of you who are watching and or listening, thank you for, like I said, watching or listening, and hope you guys enjoyed this episode. And that is another episode of The Outside Line. And I hope you guys enjoyed. And we'll catch you guys on the next episode.